What's good, everyone? Thanks for listening to the first episode of the Fourth Wall Splat podcast, brought to you by PEC, Peak Entertainment Conglomerate. I'm Sonic, and I'm here today with my good buddy Qweets to talk about the mid-season patch that released September 27th. Now, this is going to be a knee-jerk reaction to a bunch of the larger announcements in the change list, so it'll be interesting to see how we feel about it in a month or two when we've actually played the game. So at this point, I have not touched the game yet since the update. Qweets has played it just in training mode just for a tiny bit there, and we're just going to give a couple of examples of what we think is going to be happening here. So if you're listening to this on the Sonic RV YouTube channel, I'll put up some clips from Rumbleverse 1.0 for you to watch while we talk. And if you're listening to it anywhere else, then either I said something really stupid and it went viral, or I'm popular enough that someone else stole my content and pretended it's theirs. So either way, I made it. All right, so we broke down this into a few categories, and we can get right into the changes. We're going to start off talking about the new moves and changed moves as well. So first up, we have Dive Kick, which is a new move that only appears in the epic variety, so it's going to be pretty rare to find. It takes a fair bit amount of stamina to use, and I'm going to ask Qweets here to explain how it works.
All right, so Dive Kick. Basically, you press dive, and then you press it again to kick, but if you do it at like the apex of the jump, you can get a perfect dive kick that gives you more damage, I believe. And you also can hit people on the ground with it, which is going to be super insane to see what people are going to do combo wise with it. It can also wall splat, from what I've seen. And I mean, that's about it, really.
Perfect. So you jump up in the air, you fly at your opponent super fast, and you can hit them off the ground. So that's a big change. We didn't really have any off the ground moves before this point, but this is one of them, and we actually have another one we'll talk about a bit later. In the meantime, though, with Dive Kick, how much do you think this is going to affect the meta? People are jumping around a lot already, especially in final circles and solo games where there's like up to 10 or even more potentially people in the final circles. They're jumping around, but now you have to worry about people who can just do a super fast attack while they're jumping. How do you feel about that?
I don't know. I don't think it'll change that much for final circles. It's really something hard to block because of how fast it is. It can catch you off guard and be really surprising because it's so quick. So I don't know if it's going to end up affecting things a lot or not. And people might not even migrate to the move and want to use it, kind of like dolphin dive. Like nobody used that really hardly at all. So I don't know at this point.
Yeah, well, it is a lower damage move overall right now, but it is supposed to do some higher stamina damage as well, which is important. And as you mentioned, it is pretty fast. So with the jumps in the air, people jumping all around, I wouldn't be surprised to get caught by it in the final circle a couple times. It's a very fast move. If you get someone in the air, I don't think it's going to do much damage or have too much combo ability. I haven't actually seen that yet, but I think it really does depend on what kind of combos you can get from the move, because I know you can finish your moves with it, which is pretty strong, but we'll have to see there. Go ahead.
I really think that with how fast it is, that's going to be what makes it good, because it's so hard to react to really fast things as it is, and it's probably going to end up being a pretty good ability overall. It does like 225 damage or something like that when you get a perfect dive kick. And if you're just chipping people down like that in the final circles, just going around dive kicking people who aren't looking, I think it might actually end up being really good.
Could be. And hopefully we see it. Hopefully it isn't relegated to the bottom right away, but I'm sure at least when the move comes out, which is now, it's going to be popular at least for a little while. Pretty much everybody's going to pick it up and give it a try at least.
Exactly.
And then after that, we'll see. And then we'll see a week from now how prominent it still is.
Yeah, for sure.
So the next move that was added is kind of a continuation of a series. The Super Izuna drop is now a purple version of the Izuna drop. So we already had a green version and a blue version before. Apparently in one of the original betas or old iterations of this game, they had created a purple one, but had, I guess, some problems with it potentially. So it looks like they've added this back in and made one major change to the move overall. So before, you used to grab the opponent, fly through the air straight ahead of you, and not be able to do much else. It actually was the second lowest damaging move in the game, just above Chokeslam. But the problem is Chokeslam actually has a benefit to it in that it does high stamina damage, whereas Izuna drop had nothing else going for it really. So it wasn't too popular, but it was an okay pickup near the beginning of the game. Usually got swapped out for something later. Now though, with the purple Izuna drop and actually every version below it, you can aim it. So when you grab someone, similar to Big Swing, hold a direction, and that's the direction that you're going to fly. So I think that, even though it's lower damage overall still compared to some of the other moves in the game, the fact that you can aim where you want to go, it also goes quite high in the air. That could be a bit of a game changer. That could make people want to take this move over some of the other moves potentially.
Yeah, especially since you could aim to look for like a car bounce or something after you grab them. Like you can end up getting a lot more damage from it if you can hit the cars.
Yep, getting bounces is pretty good because that move already sends you fairly high in the air and does get extra damage from height. So being able to aim it, I'm not sure how, like I know the purple version goes very far. I guess the question is, can you go like a short distance with the purple version as well, or does it force you to go a certain distance but you get to choose the direction? That's
From
something
what I've tried, it doesn't look like you can have any control over it. You basically just get to pick a direction that it goes, and there doesn't seem to be any like slowing yourself down to try and purposely land on a car, so it still won't be that easy to land on cars.
Fair enough, but it can get you higher up in the air and gives you more control overall, which is always a good thing, benefit to the move. One thing I wondered about actually is, why did they give directional control for all versions of the move? They mentioned that they wanted to make it more unique, and it is. But with some of the other moves that are in the game, when they had multiple different versions of it, they had different properties as well. So with the diving moves, dolphin dive, there we go, you could do a jump cancel, and that's a purple move. But with the blue version of it, you could only do a dodge cancel. So I'm wondering why they changed it to make it so that, you know, maybe only the purple version should be controllable. That would be a great reason to have the purple version versus the other ones.
Yeah, there's no real like difference between all of them now, other than just like range and damage. It's just the same move but different rarities. Yeah, I kind of agree. I think they should have saved that just for the purple variant, but maybe the blue as well if purple items or purple books aren't that easy to find anymore. I'm not quite sure what their thought process was on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would have been something that was more interesting to just have for the purple version. That gives it a lot more preference over the previous versions. But as you said, if the purple books are less common, then you might just not have the choice, and it's still an alright move overall.
Yeah, exactly.
But speaking of volley dive and dolphin dive earlier, one of the other main changes is that these moves can now hit off the ground. So that would be referenced as an OTG in most fighting games, and it means that if you knock someone down, instead of your combo being over, or in many cases before, you could only do something like a elbow drop to finish it. Now you can actually pick them back up and do an extra move off of that too. So I would say that is actually a huge change, and the developers have said that this was the intention the whole time. There was some bug or problem that they couldn't get around before the release of the game that was preventing them from making it work this way. And as soon as I saw those moves, that's how I kind of felt about them too, because they go for your feet, and then they knock you off your feet, but it just seems like you're diving into the ground, and that's what you should be hitting. So they've actually made that change. So I've seen a couple of really crazy combos that have come from that so far. I haven't played yet myself to try them, but I did skulk around Twitter a little bit earlier today and see what people are doing. And wow, I think the stock of this move and the creativity that people are going to have with this move is going to be insane.
Yeah. I'm really curious to see what people can do with it now that it has like on the ground properties. It's I think it's going to be a lot stronger for sure. It definitely seems like it so far. I played with it like a little bit, and being able to pick somebody up off the ground after you've already knocked them down and just pop them up and then jump cancel out and then grab them again is super cool. I really like it.
Looks like it makes the move a lot more fun too. It gives it a much better, much more clear purpose than before, when it was just a strike move that you could use from a distance, and that's all right, but it didn't really surprise people from the distance that well. So being able to hit them even potentially off of like a wake up back fist when they knock on the ground sometimes, that seems enormous to me, because before there was absolutely nothing you could do after that. There was no way to get over there fast enough to hit them. Now though, it changes everything, and it really launches people when you hit multiple in a row. It's crazy.
Yeah, the fact that it works better as a traversal move now as well is nice, because you can just kind of travel around with it. You charge it up and just launch yourself, especially from like high buildings and stuff. If you're just trying to get to other buildings, that change for volley dive, all the dives I think got that change added to it.
Yep, so they used to go straight down, like you'd go your distance and you wouldn't take any stamina damage when you hit the ground, even from high distances, but they just kind of fizzled out in the middle of the air, and that didn't get you anywhere, and that was a big problem. So now they give you like a steady decline, and it's going to make jumping from a tall building to another nearby building a lot easier, actually. So that's a huge deal. You won't have to climb there anymore. You might even be able to get an attack on someone who's on top of that building without them really knowing, because you're coming from so far away. That I can see is a big thing that people probably won't pick up on right away. It's going to take a while for them to realize that it's an option now, especially if they passed over the move constantly, like I did, admittedly, for the most part, before this patch. It's going to take some getting used to.
Yeah, I really think people are going to start picking it up more, for sure.
I think it's going to be pretty popular. That's for sure. And it has other utility as well, just for bouncing people off the edges. And I wonder now too, it could be super dangerous if you're close to water, because even if you just get a knockdown, you can now take someone out of the match instantly.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. That's crazy.
That'd be wild.
Yeah, that I would definitely gonna have to try that. That sounds like fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be some more advanced play. Hopefully it doesn't become too toxic, because a lot of people are gonna fly out of the map, especially with some of the other changes in this list. It's gonna become more common, and it's one of the most fun things to do to people, but also the least fun to have happen to you, especially if you're at full health before then. You just lose the game. But we'll see. It might be more and more popular now.
That's water circles.
Yep, that's water circles. And it definitely gives you a better reason to pick up volley dive now, which before I used dolphin dive occasionally, and did fairly well with it at times, but I would just not pick up volley dive even if I didn't have any other move. I just didn't understand how to use it. But now, it being an off the ground, like, I'm definitely going to pick up that move now and make use of it.
Yep, same.
Awesome. So the next thing we wanted to talk about are the changes to both of the poison moves. So Previously, we had a move that was called Bad Breath that was actually just bad. And that's another move that I would just leave on the ground. I wouldn't pick it up unless I wanted to have a laugh or something, because there's not much you could do with it. You would spray people with the mist. They could actually block it because it's a physical attack. And then even if you got them, they would fall on the ground. They would take some poison damage over time, but it didn't benefit you in any way. So there's been a couple of changes to that now. Now it has been changed, first of all, to Poison Mist, so it's got a different name. It's not bad anymore, it's poison. That's important to know because this move also just seems like it's going to be much stronger. It's going to be a lot more popular. It's pretty much strictly an upgrade to Vicious Mist that was already quite popular, and that one doesn't do any damage, so you add some more damage on top of that. I think this is gonna not be fun to deal with, to be honest, but we'll see how that goes. It does apply a stun effect now, like Vicious Mist did, and that means you can combo with it. So it didn't look like the stun lasted quite as long, but maybe you can speak to that, Qweets, but it still has a stun, so you might be able to hit with a chop or some kind of faster grab move after it, which is going to get you more damage, or at least more stamina damage, which is just better. Like, it's just a better version of Vicious Mist in that sense, and you can still use it from the air. You can use it from the ground. They actually updated the charge version of the move to be easier to use. You run around faster with it. It affects a larger area now, so you could run through a group of people and just poison them all, stun them all, hopefully not get hit yourself, but that remains to be seen yet. And that poison effect does less damage than it did before because it doesn't last as long, but one of the main reasons, or one of the main benefits that it has, is that it still now adds to your total damage, which counts towards your perks. So that didn't happen before, which made it just an awful move, unfortunately. But now, much stronger.
Yeah, it's a lot like it's a other mist move now. It's basically just a straight upgrade, I think. Well, it depends on if you want to carry the vicious version, which doesn't poison, but at the same time, they both stun and combo out of them. So it's going to be annoying, I think, having to deal with two different types of mists that, initially you're not going to know if you need to block or dodge. Like, it's just overall going to be annoying, I think. But Bad Breath definitely needed to be changed because it just was useless.
Pretty much, yeah. And yeah, I mean, the main difference between it deals a little bit more damage by itself, but it can be blocked, and that's a huge thing. It's a lot easier to block something than it was regular Vicious Mist, which you have to dodge. That's your only option, or else you're going to get hit by it. So that is a big change, but it remains to be seen, and I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot about it from people on Discord and Reddit and everything if it ends up being unfun to get hit by regularly. But at the same time, it just means they need to block more. And
True.
Blocking is undergoing a change too. We'll get to that a bit later. But first I wanted to talk about the Poison Sumo Slap as well. So Poison Sumo Slap has changed in a couple of ways. It doesn't do as much poison damage now either. It actually did more damage as the blue version than the purple version of Sumo Slap did before, but you couldn't charge it. So that was the difference. Now I don't know how much they've lowered it at this point, actually. They just said that they shortened it a fair bit. So it's going to do less damage, but that poison damage, again, counts towards your perks. So overall, you're doing a bit less damage to your opponents, but you're getting more benefit yourself. So it's not like a downgrade or anything. It's kind of like a side grade or something. It's just replacing one good effect for another. I think that's gonna help, and it also got another buff in another area anyway, which we'll talk about in just a second. But I know Qweets didn't use Sumo Slap as much as I did. I would say Sumo Slap is probably my favorite move overall to use in the game, especially my favorite strike, definitely by far. But what would you say? Like, how much do you think this is going to change the use of Poison Sumo Slap versus the purple version, if we can even find it now?
I mean, you said it all just right there. Like people use it if they can't find the purple one. It just it it is basically a side grade. It just really depends on what moves you can find at the time. I think people are going to end up having to uh be okay taking a blue ability over trying to just keep finding a purple or something.
Yep, I know some of the higher level players actually preferred the blue version before because of the amount of damage it did, and you did lose the ability to charge it, but that wasn't really a huge deal for them. And also when I used it too, I found that charging it was pretty rare. It only happened maybe after I got like a plank hit or something like that, which everybody loves plank hits, of course. So now that it's less damage, I wonder if the pros, will call them for now, we don't have a league at the moment, but the very high skilled players are going to switch to purple when it's available. Even before, it was around all the time, but now there's less damage on it, but you get a different replacement for it anyway.
Yeah, I think people will be okay picking it up, but they'll probably still want the purple just because of more damage. Because didn't the blue poison sumo slap end up actually doing more damage than the purple one overall if you counted in the poison as well?
Yeah, it did.
Okay.
Before.
So, yeah. So
now,
people will
I assume
probably,
not.
yeah, they'll go for the purple one then if they can.
Yeah, I would imagine so now. But blue is still going to be a great one to find, and it's going to be more common, of course. So not much to worry about there. They also made another big adjustment to sumo slap, even the purple one and the and the blue one, and even the base one. Actually, it's going to make the green sumo slap not so bad. We'll get to that a bit later when we talk about stamina. But for now, we're going to move on to the next topic, actually, which is balance changes to moves. So in this new update, a lot of moves have seen changes, like fairly big changes, actually. And I'm going to go on record and saying I think it's actually too much changes at the moment. I'm surprised that they have done as much as they actually did now. I know a while ago, there was, I think, a video with Qweets, who is one of the lead combat developers, or probably the lead combat developer of the game, and he mentioned that they weren't going to change much, if anything, for a while when this game came out, and that was their original plan because they wanted to see how the meta shifted and worked out the problems that it was going through. So to have this mid-season update come out and just change almost everything is not expected at all.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, and I think they might have gone a little bit overboard, but we'll see. We have to. That's my initial impression without playing it yet. But we'll see how it goes. I like a bunch of the changes that they did make, and I'm a little concerned about a couple of changes that they made as well. We'll go over those now. Starting with the basic vicious attack. So basic vicious was a suplex before, and if you got the upgrade, the perk upgrade, you could turn it into a brain buster. Once you had any kind of special move, there was really no reason to use it. The only time you would want to use basic vicious pretty much is when you were doing a Cosmo shot to finish off after the kick at the top of the apex of that jump, or sometimes like if your duos partner tossed an opponent to you, it's easier to grab with that. So it had a bit easier tracking. It was a bit faster, or I guess at the time it was a medium speed grab. So getting people off the wall and whatnot was a bit easier. But overall, there still really wasn't a reason to use it. If you could use a special move, you're going to do more damage with any special move and do more stamina damage. Now, though, actually, there's a good reason to use it. The startup is faster. So when you activate this move, it is now the fastest vicious move in the game. And it should be. It's quite hard to react to now and dodge out of the way. Like, it's just on the edge of what you could reasonably do, and probably if you have a bad connection, you won't be able to dodge it at all. And especially when compared to other moves that have gotten longer startups, it actually will be a safer option in many cases. Won't do quite as much damage, but well, unless you have Brainbuster, which will actually make that perk decent. Before, I would say that was not the best one either. But now it's fast. It's really fast. And I think that's great. It gives you a reason to use it later. On top of that, the Chokeslam family, so the green Chokeslam and the super Chokeslam, which is blue, both those moves are also faster. And that's probably going to make Super Chokeslam like my favorite grab move because of the other changes that have happened in this version. And that's exciting, actually. I do like these changes quite a bit. They're moves that aren't high damage, but in the Chokeslam family case, they are high stamina damage, and that's going to be a big thing going forward. So everybody's going to have to grab those legs pretty much. So those,
Yeah, it's for Chokeslam specifically. With the changes, I just really think Chokeslam's going to become way more popular. Just because it's faster than most of the other moves now, and the fact of those stamina changes that we'll talk about in a little bit. Like just overall, I think stamina is going to play a huge role in this update.
Yep, so you're going to get stamina broken a lot more often in the new update. If you don't take legs. So this is your hint, take legs. On the flip side, though, and this crushes me to say, ironically, that the Crusher family startup is now slower. I didn't think there was a problem with that before. I'm kind of sad that they changed this move, actually. And now it might be pretty hard to actually hit with it, and they did it because it's a high damage move. So I kind of get it. Like, you have to be riskier to get the higher damage, but did they slow it down too much is a question.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that yet. I've used it a little bit, and it's definitely slower for sure. But I don't know. I do think there should be that risk reward gameplay with things like that, like Javelin Tackle and Diamond Crusher. I really think that I think it's important for them to be riskier to get that kind of damage, because the damage is kind of nuts.
Yeah, it might change the purpose of them as well. As Qweets mentioned, the Tackle family is also getting a slower startup, which I'm sure many people will be happy about. I don't know if that change was necessarily required either. I think it just needed a reduction in range rather. But with them both being slower now and the highest damage moves, it might change their role to be just combo finishers instead of something you just throw out whenever you're running up to someone, basically. It'll be really risky because they can react to it. Like, these are definitely more reactable now. And that's going to change the role, I think. So will it, like, how much is that going to do, really? Are they going to be useful in a one-on-one fight anymore? You're going to have to trick someone to be able to hit them with it. So, like, doing a regular jump and then the move, maybe that's good enough still. Like, that used to be a pretty popular play before, but now might not work. You might be too slow, and the recovery, especially on the Tackle family, which has gotten additional recovery time, these are very unsafe moves now. So are people even going to pick them up after the first week or something like that? That's going to be a question. And that's sad to me because Tackle was a little bit broken. I think the range on it was nuts. I think that should have been reduced. But otherwise, I really liked it. It was a very good move for fighting multiple people at a time because it gave you space between one opponent and another, especially if you're in a duo mode. That meant you could do a grab move and not get punished for doing it in front of the other person. So I use that a lot, especially when in like 1v2 situations or later circles in solos even. It makes sure you're safe most times after you hit someone. Crusher, on the other hand, not as safe because the kick doesn't do any damage to start it, and all the damage comes from the actual stunner type animation part of it. But you can get hit out of that, and that happens quite often, especially when there's a whole bunch of people swinging their arms around. So with it having a slower startup, already being interruptible quite often, I don't know if it's gonna work. Like, that scares me. This is the Crusher, Diamond Crusher is like my favorite move in the game in terms of just how fun it is to use. But with it being slow now, that's tricky. I don't know how that's gonna work.
It's going to be very risky to have the fun you want.
Yeah, pretty much. And with tackle being reactable more so now, and also having more of a recovery time, I mean, the good news is that we'll see less people just like charging up to you and using it from so far away, but then like teleporting close to you because one of you doesn't have the greatest connection or something. Because that was the most annoying thing about tackle before. It had times where it was unreactable. Now though, it might be too reactable. We'll have to see about that. It's definitely slower.
Yeah, we'll see with time. Give this a few weeks play and then see how we feel about it then.
Yep. Another balance change. So those are the main moves that got affected in this balance change. The next thing I want to talk about though is about the increased damage scaling overall. So damage scaling is pretty common in any fighting game. They haven't actually changed how it works in this game. They've just changed the amount that it does, I guess. But what it means is that if you hit someone with a raw move, which is just the single move itself, for example, if you use a Crusher, it's going to do 316 damage at the base level with no arm pods. But if you Irish whip someone into the wall and then you do Diamond Crusher, the amount of damage that it does scales down, so it does less damage. I believe it's something like 25% or something like that. They reduce that, so comboing overall is going to be dealing less damage. So one upside of that, if you're less good at the game, I guess you could say, is that the chances that you're going to be killed with one bad decision basically is going to be reduced. So it might take 3 combos or something to defeat you, which is nice. I don't mind fights being a little bit longer because, yeah, having someone for example, elbow drop you when you had no idea they were there, taking away most of your health, and then guessing right once on your wake up, comboing you and eliminating you from the game. Like, that's a crappy feeling. Nobody likes to have that happen to them. So if combos overall can do less damage, maybe by like 200 or something, I believe it is on the top end, like if you optimize your combo, that's going to make survivability a bit higher, which is pretty good. I mean, we'll see. For people who are very good, it might be a little more frustrating. Go ahead.
I think with it being increased, like the damage scaling, I think it may make fights more fun because you get to do more before being killed. So there's not like a touch of death combo where you just get hit once and you're just gone. I think it might make the gameplay a little more fun, but I don't know. I like doing combos and I like the rewarding feeling of it, but at the same time, them nerfing it is kind of sad for me. But I don't know. I think it might end up being like a silver lining thing where it ends up being fun, more fun, like the fights in general.
Yeah, I mean, it could be more fun because you get to do more combos.
Yeah.
But, or at least if you get comboed once or twice, maybe you survive. And I think that's the main thing behind it is like touch of death combos exist and they probably still exist, but they're not
They're just
fun.
different.
Yeah, I mean, obviously if you run up to your opponent and just absolutely dominate them in 2 different hits, like you feel pretty darn good, but your opponent couldn't do anything. They made one wrong guess, which of course they deserve to be punished for in terms of taking damage, but if it's only one, they only had one chance and that was it, it's not fun. Like anyone who is experiencing that from the end of getting the crap beaten out of you, not a good time.
Yeah, so, definitely a crappy like way to lose.
Yeah, especially like you spend so much time looting and then all of a sudden it's over. And it's like, well, I can go back to the menu, get back on the barge, launch myself in, but am I going to survive more than 2 seconds once I actually get into a fight? Like, you don't know. Am I going to spend 5 minutes looting and then die in 2 seconds? Like, it's not fun. And being able to do more combos, if that's what it means, that's pretty cool. It gives you more of a chance to escape as well if someone's really getting you, if someone's got your number. So that could be good too. We'll have to see how it goes. It might make like final circles a little ridiculous, although actually combos don't often happen in final circles because there's too many people that will interrupt it for you. You know who you are, always jumping in a third partying when I'm about to eliminate someone. So
yeah,
annoying.
you,
Yeah.
Todd, I see you.
Yeah, Todd. Why do you have to be like that?
Damn Todd.
Yeah.
It's always Todd.
So one of the other changes that they made here is tracking changes to the basic combos. So you can't spin around. You shouldn't be able to spin around like 180 degrees. And I feel like this is going to help PC players more than anyone else. On console or when you're using the controller, even if you are on PC, it seemed like it was a lot easier to do like the 1, 2, 3 basic combo and just spin around. So if you whiff the first one because they dodged past you, you just spin right around and start hitting them again, even though they're when their dodge just started finishing. So now you shouldn't be able to do that. I think the first two are maybe you can do like a 45-degree turn or probably a little bit more than that.
I think it's like 90 degrees.
90? Okay.
I think so, yeah.
Which is fine still. Like if they're anywhere kind of in front of you still, you'll be able to correct yourself and that's okay. But if they dodge behind you, they're not going to get punished because you just turn right around instantly. Which, yeah, I mentioned seems to be a bit harder to do on PC overall. Now, you mentioned earlier, though, that you could, on the third hit, kind of spin a 180 still.
Yeah, if you're doing the 1-1-1, just the normal default 3-hit attack combo, the first 2 hits can only turn like you said, like 90 degrees or so, maybe a bit less. But the third hit, you can still 180 that thing, no problem.
That's not too bad. I mean, if someone did a dodge behind, at that point, at least they'll be recovered. If they tried to do an attack, you'll clash. I think even if you have the exploder thing, I forget that perk name at the moment, unfortunately, but I'm pretty sure you'd still clash. Yeah, bombastic. So you should still clash with that, or maybe you're just fast enough that you beat them. But either way, as a PC player, this is great because console people would turn around on me all the time and just hit me, and I wasn't able to do the same thing. Now they can experience what it's like on a PC.
Yeah, WASD is definitely harder than using a joystick, that's for sure.
Yeah, you lack a little more control. You've only got 45-degree angle turns basically. So, oh well, that's good. I'm happy about that change. I think it'll make dodging your opponent, especially dodging past them, more viable. At least you're not going to get punished, or at the very worst, you should just trade for it, in which case you build super meter anyway. So not so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a decent change.
Yeah, I'm happy with that one. Next thing I want to talk about is the fact that more attacks are going to trigger Invulnerable State, where you can't elbow drop the opponent after. So when you hit someone against the wall, if they're flashing, that was fine. You couldn't do any other moves to them. But when they landed on the ground, you used to be able to do an elbow drop for, probably like 80 something damage, maybe, probably, or possibly even less, depending on the combo that you did beforehand. But it was a bit of damage. And I don't like this change at all, actually. Or maybe I should specify that in some ways I like it, but in some ways I don't. I felt like it was fine overall. It was a little bit of extra damage, which, could be the difference. It might knock you out of the game, and that's unfortunate. But like if you spear tackled someone against a wall, for example, they would always be invulnerable. And you could do an elbow drop on them and get an extra couple of damage. But if you did that, you did also have to consider the fact that you're giving up some positioning advantage. Because if you hit them off of the ground, they get up immediately and they go to one side or the other if there's a wall behind them. That means that as soon as they get up, you're in another 50-50 situation where, you know, they could attack you, they could do a strike move like for a higher priority. I don't know if they could actually run at you and do a drop kick, but they could do anything really, and so could you. But they were no longer facing the wall if you actually hit them with a combo, and I guess the benefit was that you got the bit of extra damage. So now you don't have that option anymore. They're gonna fall off the wall. They're gonna stay flashing for a second or two once they hit the ground, and you can't do anything about it unless they just wait there, which, you know, sometimes that's a good move, but then you're open to ground attacks, which there's a lot more of them now, so it might be a little bit more risky. What that also means too, though, and this is pretty huge, and maybe they had to do this because of the other changes that they've made to stamina damage, but before, if you off the ground elbowed someone, you give up your positioning advantage for a little bit of extra damage, but at the same time, your opponent was not able to use get up block, which would give them back 30 stamina right away. So you would be able to stamina break them if you were able to hit them with your next attack pretty quickly, much easier, much more likely. And that option's not there anymore. So anyone who gets hit up against the wall, they become invulnerable. They can't do anything else, really. They can do something else. They can do any kind of wake up they want without worrying about getting hit for extra damage. So what are your comments on this, Casey? I know you mentioned that you also liked how it was before, but do you have anything further to add there?
I'm with you on it. I definitely did not see an issue with it overall, but I think their mindset going into this was more like, we want people to have their wake up options, and it's not completely fair to just be able to take that away from them with an elbow drop like that. I think that's maybe their mindset behind the change, is the only thing I can really think of.
Yeah, I mean, wake up options are important, and you were taking away something from them. And especially if you're getting comboed, usually you go invulnerable when someone's hit you with either a big damage move or they've done some kind of extended combo on you. And yeah, if you don't have wake up options because they hit you out of it, like, that is a problem. So that's a great point. I didn't even think of that right now.
Yeah.
But that's why, like I mentioned at the very beginning, I would like to see it in some situations and not in others. Like, I think if you tackle someone against the wall and then you do an elbow drop after, I think that's a good decision between doing a little bit of extra damage and keeping your positioning advantage, because their back's against the wall. If you hit them again, then you have more options. But giving them the ability to get back up, it's probably the right move. It might help with survivability as well,
Right.
or certainly will. But I mean, if you did like a 3-hit combo, if you did a 3-hit combo, just the 1-1-1 version, knocked them on the ground, you were able to do an elbow drop off that. I always forgot about that, and that was a big issue for me, because I felt like you shouldn't really be able to do it, like it shouldn't be a thing. And so that won't be possible.
It was
I don't think.
harder to do. Like, it was definitely harder to do because you had to do it instantly rather than, the other ones where you can wait a little bit and then do it.
Yeah, so it was challenging, but I never got maximum damage off that. I always forgot about that because I didn't think it should really be a thing. I hope in this version it's not. That would make me a little happier. Not a lot of players were actually using it, but you knew if someone did that, then they were probably pretty good. Being able to elbow drop someone after doing a super to them, like, that's not necessary. I don't think you should be able to do it in that case either. So it's tricky for me because in some ways I do like this change, but overall I didn't think it was as much of an issue until what you'd mentioned, Queets. So that's probably a great reason for it, actually.
Yeah.
So it'll probably grow on me. I like the ability to do elbow drops after some moves, but yeah, I didn't like them after every move, and just taking them all out, I guess, is a safe way to do it.
Yeah, taking people's options away, I think, is always bad in terms of like game balance. Like, if you can just take somebody's wake up options away because you can do an elbow after a move, it just really, I think they went in the right direction with it. It's just kind of sad in some ways, I guess.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a good use of elbow drop aside from jumping off a building, basically.
Right.
Otherwise, there's not too many cases where you want to use elbow drop because it can be blocked so easily and punished unless they don't know it's coming. And that's the only case that I can think of, at least, where you could elbow drop someone and they couldn't really do anything about it. So you knew you were going to get a little bit of extra damage in there, but it pushed them away. So
yeah,
had upsides, had downsides. That's fine. Otherwise, just commenting on this quickly, I know from the notes that they removed a couple of infinites, especially from duos. That's good, of course. We are guilty of using the infinite a couple of times, and it's really great for a laugh. It was pretty funny the first few times we did it, and then we just kind of stopped doing it because we're like, wow, this is super unfair. Even though it's really funny, it wasn't fair. And
it was definitely funny.
Yeah.
But being able to just lock somebody down like that and not allow them to play the game is just not fair. It's just not fair. So we just stopped doing it.
Yep. And I mean, especially like in a 2v1, you get their partner down and you just land a chop, which is like one of the easiest things to land overall. You land that, hit them twice. If your partner's close, you can just eliminate them from the game. They can't do a single thing about it.
I mean, you can still do it, but it's up to like 5 times or something, and then they drop to the floor now or something like that.
Right, yeah. So the change that they made in this version is that you can do it 5 times, and then they'll fall on the ground. So technically, well, I'm not sure if it's 5 times total or just 5 hits total. Actually, that's something I'd have to check on. But
oh yeah,
if
I'm
it's
not sure about that.
If it's 5 hits total, then that means you can do it, your partner can do it, you could do it again. But what would be better in that case is actually just some kind of special move after after your partner does it.
Right.
So that's a good change. Obviously, getting rid of infinites, even though they're fun and funny, they're not good for the game.
No, not at all. If you're trying to balance a fighting game, you always want to make sure infinites go bye-bye.
Yeah. Moving on to a separate topic, I guess, there. They mentioned that there's going to be less epic moves overall in the game. So that's the purple books. You're not going to find them on the ground as much because basically everybody was prioritizing them over any of the other colors. And, it's kind of understandable. In a Battle Royale game, you're given different rarities of moves. You got green, blue, and purple in this game. And obviously, purple is the best, right? If it's the most rare, then it has to be the best. Well, that's not always the case, and I know some higher level players were figuring that out over time. Maybe it was just a meta choice at the time, but they were using some blue moves more often. I don't think there's any real case where you'd want to use a green move over top of a blue move, but if purples are less common, then you have to. You get what you get. And I think it'll be interesting overall to see more variety because at least the difference, for example, the Crusher moves. If you had Diamond Crusher, you kick them, you do the stunner, they fly away. Lots of damage, great fun. But if you have the blue version, you don't do that kick first. You just grab them and you jump towards you. It's the only move I think that jumped towards you before. So that was variety, and some crazy things can happen because of that. There's been a bunch of people with clips of grabbing someone, jumping towards themselves, and then okay, there was a car there or a bounce pad or something, and now they went flying. And So that stuff can happen more if purple is less available. And one more point about that is that because there are 2 more purple moves now in the game, that means your javelin tackles, everything else that was preferable before. Hopefully, it still is relevant in the meta, but hopefully, everything that was great before, you're not going to find it as much. So it's going to be more of a treat to actually find it. If you get to take it off of someone else, that's great. But you're going to find everything less, and that might change things up a little bit. We'll have to see. It might also just make an entirely new meta where blue is the expected, and if you have a purple, cool. Maybe blue becomes more desirable for some reason. I don't know. Do you have any other comments on that, Qweets?
It really depends on how often you do see purple books. Like a while back, it felt like they did a back end change where they made purple books not drop as often out of gold crates. I was finding them more often in blues. Like I would have to break so many gold crates just to find a purple and hope that it wasn't skyrocket. Like
Yep.
I don't know at the moment how much rarer it's gonna be, but I don't know. Hopefully it's still fun with that change either way.
Yeah, they said they turned it down a little bit. It's not a huge change, but with 2 more purple moves available, you're gonna see less purples, and there's probably gonna be more skyrockets, because why not?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I love breaking a box and finding skyrocket after skyrocket.
Yep.
So awesome.
And then big swing when the final circle's in the middle of the map. Perfect.
Yep.
Absolutely perfect.
Well, that's just BR, RNG for you.
Yep, but it definitely seems more common, even though I'm sure it's not. In a BR game, you're like, oh, purple rarity? Like, that means certainly that all of them are evenly distributed, right? Like, if there's 10 of them in the map, then there's 10 of all the different purples. Well, no. It just seems like there's skyrockets and big swings and more skyrockets. That's just how it is. And whatever move you don't like, even though they're not bad moves, they have certain situations in which they're excellent moves. But I don't like using them personally, and that's what I find all the time.
Yep, same.
Yeah. All right, so we got 2 more things in this, and then we'll move on. But air dodge recovery has been increased a lot. So before it was very popular, or sorry, I guess I can't say it was very popular, but among players who were pretty strong, you jump above someone, you air dodge to get higher and also invulnerable, just in case someone else is attacking you, basically. You land on the other side of them, and then or even before you land rather, you activate your special move and tackle them from the air, or start sumo slapping them before you hit the ground, or something like that. So now you can't do that anymore, actually. How do you feel about that, Qweets?
I don't know. I'm a little conflicted on that. I did it fairly often, and you can still do it, but you have to super jump and then dodge to get enough height to where the recovery's done before you hit the ground, and then you can hit a vicious move. You can still do it. It's just not as easy now. You can't just raw jump, dodge, and then grab. You have to double jump, dodge, and grab. I don't know. I think it's probably a good change, especially when you're playing controller players. You jump behind them, they have to use that right analog stick to try and turn their camera around. Otherwise, if they can't do that in time, you're just making them guess on what they need to do. Do they need to dodge? Do they need to block? And that was what was strong about it, and I think that's why they changed it.
Yeah, it was pretty strong in that sense. And yeah, if you can't move your camera fast enough, you can't see what's coming. So even if it is a reactable move, if you can't see it, you can't react to it. So that is it's a good reason to change it. My concern was that if you take this out and someone just blocks constantly, how do you beat them? And there's other ways to do that now, which is nice. We'll talk about that shortly. But that was one of the main ways to open someone up, basically. If they were dodging all the time, you just jump over them, grab them. Because if you're standing in front of them and you try to grab them, they'll just dodge out of the way and punish you. But if you jumped over them, they had to guess at what you were going to do, and they didn't always guess right. So that was an option.
You can still do that. You sacrifice the dodge. Like, you can still jump over people and grab them from behind. Like,
You can,
just-
yeah.
it's a little less safe, which
Yeah,
I
without
think
the
is
air dodge.
fine.
The other thing, though, that you could use air dodge for, and this is one of the main things that separated higher level players from lower level players, I would say, is just the ability to chase someone down and know that if you can either double jump and then do an air dodge to get extra height, or even just a single jump and air dodge to get extra height quickly, that was great for traversal. And now you can't, I mean, you can still do that. You can definitely still chase people down that way. But when someone else was climbing, you could actually jump, dodge in the air, and get high enough, and then use a special move to hit them off the wall, basically. And there was nothing they could do. You can't block when you're climbing. That was a great way to stop people from running away from you, and you cannot do that anymore.
Yeah, I'm gonna miss that for sure. Like, I use that a lot to try and get people who are running away. I'm not sure why they changed it in that way. I'm assuming they changed it just for the thing I had said before, where you're jumping and dodging over people and grabbing them from behind, because it was a little unfair. But I still think you should be able to punish people trying to run from you. But I don't know. It's balancing is not easy in game development.
And they did introduce some other methods of chasing people down. I actually don't have them scheduled to talk about this time, but to mention them quickly anyway, you can now hold onto the wall, jump, which you were able to do before by pressing the jump button, which would make you move sideways or up very quickly, but now you can dodge while doing that. So technically that is a defense against what used to be in the game, where you could jump and up to them and hit them with a special right away, although the chances of you actually being able to see them is super low, so it wouldn't really work. It does help you climb a lot faster, which, you know, that is relevant. You can chase people down, and if they don't know about it, you'll get up there faster than they did. That's important. Takes a lot of stamina. So it's risky in that way too. You might get to the top and then have no stamina, and then all of a sudden, like, you're fighting them again, and that's what you wanted. But now, if you get hit, you might lose that fight, or they might just toss you and run away again or something. So there are options still. I don't like them as much, but we'll get used to it, I guess. I understand they had to get rid of it for other reasons. And this is probably just a byproduct of that. Like, it's just something that happens because of the other reasons they want to get rid of them. But I'm going to miss this a lot, actually. It was fun.
Yeah.
Someone runs away, you just jump, grab them, take them out. It was great.
It was good times, but we move on. We evolve with the game, I guess.
Yep. Well, we'll see how it goes in the future. So the last change for balance changes that we're going to talk about right now is to super. So this was pretty contentious, I would say, overall. A lot of people didn't like how super worked. They didn't like how it beats everything. Your opponents could throw it out constantly. They get health back. There was low recovery, especially if you try to do an air super. Like, there was no risk of using it, and no downside of using it often. You just spam it until you hit someone or you ran out. Like, there wasn't much else that needed to be done. So one of the big changes that I think I like, or will like quite a bit in this update, is that every time you attempt to do a super move now, you're going to lose 25 star power off of your meter. So that is just an instant chunk of your meter gone. And, you can still do it, I think, 5 times in a row. But
Yeah, I think it's 5.
yeah, you got to think about it a lot harder. Because if you're whiffing constantly, you may or may not be safe. I think they might. I'm not sure if they changed the recovery on it. Sorry, to make it more punishable. But even if they didn't, the fact that if you whiff, there goes your meter. Like, you're spending it. So that makes you have to consider it a lot more. And I think that's great. 25 star power itself maybe is too much. I don't know. But overall, I think it's a good change. That's something that I'll just have to feel out over time.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a good change. Like the amount of time you had with Super before, and I think you could throw it out like 13 times or something if you were spamming it.
Wow.
It's just overly ridiculous. So I think this will definitely help with the balance of Super for sure. Because it's supposed to be a powerful move and it still is. So
Yep.
like they didn't change the damage. So it just, you have to play smarter if you want to actually get someone in a Super.
Yeah, you have to wait for the right moment instead of just spamming it until it happens.
Yes.
I think that's a good change. The other change to Super, and this is not quite a balance change, although it does balance out your match a little bit, is that if someone rage quits your super move, which has happened to everyone a couple times, I'm sure, but if it happens now in this new update, you're still going to get the benefits of completing your super. So however much damage you would have done, you're still going to get that, which is important because someone quitting before did 2 things that were detrimental to you, really. One thing was that your superstar wouldn't end. So if nobody else, if someone else was around, maybe you could super someone else instead, and there'd be a benefit to that. But that's rare. Like if there's nobody else around, you would just run your super meter to nothing, have to start over from the beginning, and that's pretty rough. Like that's not what you want to do, especially if you hit someone early. Like that's supposed to stop your meter, but rage quitting stopped that. The other thing is that your damage gives you perks, and if you don't deal damage, you don't get perks. And if someone rage quit out of the game, then you're not getting perks because you didn't do the damage to them. So fortunately now, someone can rage quit out of the game, and you can just laugh at it because you're still going to get all the bonuses that you were supposed to get before.
Yeah, that's a good change. Like it happened to me quite often, and it sucked not getting that damage towards your perks. Like it just, because that damage towards your perk could, mean the game for you if it was like if your next perk was going to be a healing perk that was going to help you in the final circle or something. Like
I was going to say that too. I was like, it's probably the difference between you getting healing perk and not.
Yeah, you're like, oh, I need meditate, but I don't have it. Like,
yeah,
that super going through would have meant that you got it. So I don't know. It was annoying. It was funny because people getting that mad quitting is always funny. But I wonder if now if they still disappear like they do, but you get all the stuff. Like I don't know how
I'm
that
not
works.
sure. I would assume so, but maybe it's possible that they just, their husk just stays there. You still just carry their disconnected body back to the ground and slam it, and then you wouldn't know they disconnected. That's possible. They could disconnect, you wouldn't even know, which is kind of sad because it is pretty funny. But
Yeah.
still, I'd rather have this over them disconnecting in a fit of rage and you losing out on a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
So
I
that's good.
earned that. I
Exactly.
earned that super, so I deserve that kill.
Yeah. So they did add one new consumable to the game in this patch, and that is the Moosel's Shakes, and that actually fills 1/3 of your superstar meter with a drink. So even if they had not changed the super before, where rage quitters would take the super and drain it down to 0, there's definitely a fast way to get it back now. Before you'd have to combat, so maybe I can definitely see people popping super near final circles, getting someone fairly early, popping a Moosel's shake, and then basically having superstar again right away. Maybe they need to hit someone once or just get hit or something again, but either way, that's kind of scary actually in some ways.
Yeah, it means there's going to be more supers around, like all the time.
Could be. One of the changes to super that I did forget to mention earlier is actually that when you use super, even if you get someone right away, like you combo them into your super move, that would stop the clock on your super counting down right away. But because you still lose the 25 stars for activating it, you actually end up with less super than you did before. I think that's a good that's a good change. So, you know, you activate super, you have to work at least a little bit more to get it back, unless you find Musel shakes. So that's risky. But at the same time, if someone's carrying a Musel shake instead of chicken, is that worth it? Is that better? I don't know. Like, if they're carrying that into a final circle instead of weapons, is that fine? It might be the difference between them getting a revive or not in solos. In duos, it probably doesn't matter that much, because if they get taken out anyway, because they didn't have a way to get health back, then, you know, having super when you're down doesn't matter unless your partner's already dead and you're in a bad spot already there anyway. So
Right.
I'm not sure how this is going to work out. It scares me a little bit because the potential for people having super more often is higher, and super, I think, already was very slightly overused. Just it was available so quickly before. It'll hopefully be a little bit less now, but then you have this shake that just gives you the ability to get it back real fast again. So overall, might not change anything, but at the same time, I'm happy to see something else on the ground to pick up instead of the, just the stamina juice. I forget what it's called, but they were everywhere before. So if we can see some more of those, maybe that's good. Like, it's variety. That's always nice.
Yeah, variety's good.
Yeah. So we can move on to stamina damage. So there's a big change in the amount of stamina damage that, or in chip damage, we'll call it too, that happens in this game. So, for example, Chop used to do 2 stamina damage to someone who was blocking. Chop is just the basic attack. Now it does 10. The second hit of that used to do 4. It's called punch. Now it does 10. So if you do just a 1-1 to hit them with the basic moves, that's doing 20 stamina damage. That's already a fifth of your maximum amount. And if you've done anything before, then you're lower. So that's kind of scary. If you do a charge chop and you hit them and they block it, it used to do 18. Now it's doing 25. That's a quarter of your stamina just for hitting someone who's blocking. And if they've done anything up until that point, they're going to be lower. There's a good chance you're going to be able to break people more often if they're not taking legs, which nobody did before. Very much the meta was like 5-5-0, for example, or some people like myself would go either 5-3-2 or 3-5-2, which was my preferred one. So I'd have a little bit of extra stamina compared to anyone else, but that wasn't the meta for quite a while. And now people who are just sitting there blocking, they're going to have a rough time. If you're doing any moves in general, and then you get hit, like if you go to low stamina for any point of time and you get hit, it's going to be a bad time. You're going to get stamina broken now.
Yeah, the changes to all the stamina stuff is kind of crazy. Like, it just prevents people from blocking forever, basically. It's I think it's a good change though. It really puts pressure on players when you're chopping them while they're blocking, like especially now.
Yeah. It's going to force them to do something, which
Right.
may or may not work in your favor, but it's not just waiting there until you get frustrated and throw out a grab move that they can just react to and punish you with. So it will help with people who block regularly. But, you know, I'm not sure it's going to be great or not, but at the very least, it's probably going to, in a very short order, force people to take stamina pods. We're not going to see them around lying around quite as much. In addition, like Sumo Slap has got a huge boost. I'm not sure why they did this. I think it was already a great move, and now it's just stupid good, probably. Even Green Sumo Slap went from 17 to 30. Poison Sumo Slap is 30 now. Super Sumo Slap, the purple version, is 34. Like, and that's the final hit of them. Every other non-final hit still does 2 now instead of 1 as well. So you are losing a lot. Like, I guess that would be 40. So if you block Sumo Slap, you're getting hit with 40 stamina damage. That's wild.
Yeah, it's a ton.
So I guess, Qweets, how do you see this changing the overall meta? Do you think it's going to happen immediately, or it's going to take a while for people to figure out that maybe they want to get stamina broken less often?
I don't know. I think people are really gonna start gravitating towards like always having a sumo slap and like a choke slam, because you with the changes on block, like you can you can do so much stamina damage when they're just sitting there blocking. Like you could probably easily break people constantly now, especially with those two moves together. It's just gonna be kind of nuts. I think people will gravitate towards like trying to break people's stamina overall. So I think it might end up forcing people to start taking legs, but I don't think people are going to take legs like right now at the beginning.
Yeah, I think it's going to take a couple days at least of people getting so frustrated they get stamina broken all the time to realize that, hey, these yellow pods are actually useful. Got to take
Yeah.
them. Got to pick up some of them. And it's going to change things quite a bit too. Like, we might start seeing a lot more builds that only have like 2 or 3 damage, because everybody loves to add damage. That's fun. Seeing bigger numbers is fun. And now you might have to sacrifice 2 or 3 of those damage pods to actually have some stamina, so that you just don't get wrecked all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
So we'll see how this change goes. It's a huge change, I would say. This is probably one of the biggest changes, or at least it seems like it's going to be one of the biggest changes to the game so far.
Yeah, I
Uh,
would agree with that.
yeah. So we're going to move on now to falling attacks, which are better known as elbow drops, content elbows, and generally using weapons as well to do the same thing. Content chairs, I don't know. There's not really a name for that. Content elbow is the main thing. So the big change that they've introduced now is that the bounce limit off of some of the cars or anything that bounces really is going to be 1 instead of 2. So that is an enormous change, because people used to just get into a final circle and bounce twice, fly up in the air. It would be ridiculously high, which means they're not fighting anyone during that time. And then the explosion when they landed was so enormous that it would just take out everybody in the area. And that was nuts. And there was almost nothing you could do about it, because if you went to attack them, like once they're in the elbow drop animation, you could still get hit by it when they're coming down. If it's their first bounce, second bounce, doesn't really matter. It was hard to fight. So now that they've limited it to 1, that's going to reduce this amount of spam, I think. Either it's going to be more often because they're doing smaller ones constantly at less damage, or they're going to give up doing it because it's not as viable a strategy anymore. Like, it's more risky. If you can only bounce 1, it's a lot easier to figure out if they're coming for you or not. Whereas if they fly 1,000,000 meters up in the air, then you don't know where they're going to land until they're coming back down, and it creates a giant crater anyway. So
Yeah, those circles where people would just keep bouncing off of cars over and over and over till they killed everybody they wanted, like, it was incredibly annoying. And I'm kind of glad to see this change. It's like people would do that all the time if there was a car within range of the final circle, which
Mhm.
there typically was in a ton of circles.
Yeah, there's usually one thing you can bounce off at least. And I find it's funny actually. If you have multiple things to bounce off of, I don't remember seeing that very often. But for some reason, if there was like one car or one bouncy thing in the middle of a ring, it would just be constant. There'd be like two people, one after another, just constant elbow drops. And I like how the developers put it in their thing. They said this is a degenerate strategy, and I absolutely agree with that. It sucked. It was annoying to deal with, and actually
100%.
almost impossible to deal with in many cases. And you had to catch them when they were jumping onto the car in the first place. Otherwise, there's not much you could do about it. So the other change that they made to the falling attacks, though, is that vicious weapon attacks in the air are now going to break, or at the very least drop your weapon whether you hit or not. And I think that's pretty interesting. People won't be able to throw out unblockable attacks without any downside. Now, at least if you can see it coming, you dodge out of the way. For example, if they're close to you, then you can, well, they won't have a weapon anymore. And that's pretty awesome. If they do it from a very tall height, then instead of it breaking, you actually drop it, and that tall height is the equivalent of when you would just splat into the ground if you were jumping from a tall height. So it makes you drop it if you miss, and that's fine. There's a lot of recovery on it, so your opponent could probably actually just run up to you, pick up your weapon, and smack you with it before you can even recover. Like, it's pretty nuts how much recovery there is on that. But that's great. Like, if you're missing something from that high up in the air, like, you deserve it, basically.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's I don't know. Before, I wouldn't have called it high risk, high reward. I would say it's like maybe medium risk, probably low risk, that anyone's gonna see it coming or do anything about it. But at the very least now, if you don't hit them, you can't just stand up and then start attacking them with the same weapon anyway. Like, it's on the ground or it's broken. So that's nice.
Very nice. Yeah. I like this change.
Speaking of weapons, though, there's so many many new options. It's nuts. I would say actually in this mid-season update, there are overall more changes than in most other games, like their main new season update. So I guess these were probably done ahead of time or close to done ahead of time, but they just weren't implemented for whatever reason, and they put them into the game because maybe they felt like they were supposed to be there all along. But there's is there 5 new weapons or something? 6? If you count each version of them. Like, there's golf clubs, which there's 3 different versions of. There's the golf club bag, there's a steel pipe, there's a cricket bat, and there is a new chair, a metal chair. So that's already more than 5. We're at 6 there.
So
plus
purple
there's
tier of chair, right?
Yeah.
So makes 3 tiers of chairs now.
Yep. Plus there's one other weapon that I will talk about later. We'll get to that one. So 7 weapons, I guess, in total is nuts. And I mean, tell me about the golf clubs. How strong do you think they are right now?
Dude, I think the golf clubs are insanely strong. Especially like you use a purple one. Let's say you have like 5 arms powders. I forgot exactly what the numbers were, but when you get 2 hit combo off of the normal just like attack with the golf club, it like spikes them into the ground. So it's a stun basically, and then you can follow it up with the vicious on the golf club, which is like a cool little mini game almost, or like a skill check type thing in like other games. So you have to hit the vicious, a meter comes up, and you have to try and get the bar right in the perfect spot and then hit it again, and then it like golfs them away and gives you a great shot. But it does it does a lot of damage for something like that. I think it with the purple one and five damage, it was something like, wasn't it 400 something for just the vicious part of it? So like overall, the total of it ended up
Yeah.
being around like 800 damage or something from the 2 hits into the vicious.
Yeah, I think the vicious was over 400, maybe slightly over 400, and then the other hits that I saw were 250-ish, and then the other one was close to 150. So yeah, between 7 and 800 damage. That's insane. Like that's half of anyone's health from one weapon attack, which is a high priority move, and it's not a complicated combo at all. Like that does more than any combo that I can think of in the game right now, really. And it's just 3 buttons. Well, 4 buttons actually, because you have to skill shot it properly.
Yeah.
But I'm a little scared about that. That seems very strong to me. And when you add in the golf bag weapon, so if you throw a golf bag or if you hit someone with it, it works very similar to the trash can. It's got the same animation, same hits basically, but it also spawns golf clubs, which yeah, it makes sense. There's golf clubs in the golf bags, but now you're holding a weapon that spawns more weapons. And is that really what we want to have right now? Like, I know weapons are supposed to be strong, but I feel like they should also be kind of rare. And yeah, now we're spawning weapons inside of weapons, and that's scary to me, especially with how strong they are at the moment, or seem to be. I tried. Like I watched someone try them. They just seem so strong, and yeah, like they're a weapon. They've got high priority. So
Yeah, makes them super dangerous.
yeah, and I mean, in terms of thematics, I understand where the golf club came from. I don't think it's ever used in like wrestling. I can't think of any time it's been used in wrestling, because if you actually hit someone with a golf club, it would just bend around them, and you know, it hurt, but you're not going to smack them away like you do here. I can attest that. Not that I've hit a person, but I did wrap a golf club around a tree once. So that was an accident even. I was like, I was upset at something I did. I swung and I really held back, like tried to not actually do it, just kind of joke at the motion of doing it, and it just wrapped right around the tree anyway. So golf clubs aren't strong. Yeah, that was very stupid of me. That was a long time ago. But yeah, so there's in Capital City, there's a rooftop that has golf balls and a golf mat, and it's obviously a place where someone's hitting balls into the ocean. So I get that that's probably where it came from. Otherwise, though, I don't know. It's not really an effective weapon. It's not used in wrestling, which most of the other weapons have been. So that's a little, for the theme wise, and I hope that it's not actually as powerful as I think it is, but it seems like it's nuts right now.
Very much so. What I've tested, it seems really strong.
Yeah. Moving to the steel pipe. So the steel pipe is a higher rarity of the wood plank, which everybody loves. Plank is probably was the best weapon in the game. There's a good chance it still is, even though the damage has been reduced a little bit. Steel pipe I don't think is actually going to be a problem, really, because it's pretty rare that you actually just hit people with pipes, and really the only advantage that steel pipe offers over the plank is that you can use it more often. So instead of having 2 hits, you can do 3 hits. And the steel pipe itself, I forget how much damage I saw. It's not too bad. It was like a little bit over 200. It might have been 225 or something. If you get some arm pods in there, or if you have the perk that gives you extra weapon damage, yeah, I could see that being a decent hit. But at the very least, if you do hit someone with that, there's no follow-up combo. They just fall on the ground. And pretty much what everybody uses it for is just the vicious version of the move, which lets you do a combo after. So I'm fine with it being there. It's going to be rare, I guess, because it's the highest rarity. I don't think it's really going to change anything too much. People will just use it the same way they've already used wooden plank, which was annoying in itself, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I don't really have much to say on that other than, yeah, I don't think it'll be a problem. It's a little upgrade.
It's an upgrade, but we'll see if it actually is an upgrade, or if people use it as the upgrade it technically is. So Steel Chair is the new Epic tier version, or sorry, Metal Chair. I forget if it's Steel Chair or Metal Chair, but either one, pretty much the same thing. It's the Epic tier version, and it's got 6 hits instead of 4, which the blue version would have had, or the wooden chair was the lowest version that had 2 hits. And that's pretty good. You can use it for blocking. It's a great blocking tool because if you're blocking, you don't lose stamina when people hit you. But who blocks with a chair? Like if you have a weapon in your hand, you're probably just doing charging star for damage or for fun.
Right, yeah.
Nobody holds that and blocks. Everybody just
Yeah.
swings that thing as much as they can, which I think they're doing it wrong, especially with the blue version of it where you get 4 hits. The way to do the most damage with a chair is to have the chair hit the people with it twice in that case, for about 300-ish damage boosted if you have more arms and the perk. And then when you have only 2 hits left, then you can use the vicious, which used to plow through literally anything, but they've changed that actually so that it's no longer invincible, which is a whole nother change. And I guess I'm on the fence about that one. I honestly, I hated it at first, and I thought it was so stupid. And I know the metal chair, or sorry, the chair in general did need a change, but I don't think it needed the change that it got necessarily. Now when you're holding a chair, or sorry, when you pick up a chair before, it would always tell you at least that it was invulnerable. So even though it's a weapon, it would beat everything else, including super. You could just roll right through someone else's super and not worry about it. The change that I think they needed to make to weapons, especially in that case, was that once you finished using it, like if you whiffed, for example, you had pretty good distance, but there was essentially no recovery time on it. And I think they needed to add recovery time on it, and then it would have been okay to keep as it is, just as something that actually can get you out of hairy situations. Like if someone was about to super your partner, the two of us, Qweets and I, play duos a lot, pretty much exclusively. I don't play very much solos, but running the chair through someone was a great way to get your partner up, because your only other option was often super, and you don't always have that. Like if you didn't have super, it was difficult, not impossible of course, but difficult to get your partner up. And the charging star was a good way to get people out of the way. But it definitely needed more recovery on it, so that if you missed, then you could be punished for it. And the other thing is that it broke your chair anyway, so if you did hit, it did not do very much damage, and it pushed people away. So
I'm on the other side of that. I did not like that it was completely invulnerable. Like I don't know. I think the change is good overall, because it was very frustrating for probably newer players that couldn't ever beat a chair.
Yeah.
It definitely was not fair in a lot of situations.
Yeah, that's understandable. That's definitely how I felt about it at the beginning. I was like, why does this one specific move beat everything when it's a weapon? It should fit in with the rest of the weapon. Like how it should work the same way that all the weapons work. Why wouldn't it do that? And that's how it is now, actually. That's the change that's been made to chairs, is if you use Charging Star, it is just a weapon attack, which is high priority. It still goes through block. It's unblockable. But if someone uses uppercut or drop kicks you or supers you, those are higher on the priority list, and they're going to beat you now. So that was not a thing before. So I don't necessarily think that the change is going to be awful. Most of the time, it's still going to work as it did before, but that really depends too if uppercut becomes a big thing now that you can just hit people out of the chairs. We'll see.
Yeah, definitely see on that.
Yep. But to speak of the metal chair specifically, one thing that I noticed in the video that came out is the vicious attack, like this. Sorry, one of the hits. It might have been the jumping vicious attack. Did 62 stamina damage, and that is absolutely nuts. Like if you've been fighting anyone for any point, any time at all, really, like you've been doing any damage to them, they've been attacking you, like they're using stamina for their moves, they're using stamina if they block you, and now you can just whip out a chair after hitting them once or twice and hit them for 62 stamina damage. You're breaking them. Like there's unless they have really chugged all of the stamina pods, all those leg pods that they have found up until that point, there's no way they're not taking a combo. So
yeah, yeah, that's a lot of stamina damage for one thing. It does break though when you do that, right?
I believe it would, yes. Like it actually might be better if it didn't, because if you stamina broke someone and you still had a chair in your hand, there's only one thing you can really do.
True.
But if you stamina break someone and all you've hit them with is that, then you get a full combo afterwards too. So it's going to be scaled down a fair amount, I assume at that point. But yeah, if it didn't break, you would have less options. You could probably do less damage than if that didn't happen.
Yeah, maybe.
So we'll see how that goes. The last normal weapon, I would say, is the epic tier bat, which is the cricket bat. So instead of, you've got the wiffle bat, the metal bat, and now you've got a cricket bat, which is apparently better than a metal bat. We'll have to see how that works. The second hit of that normal strike combo bounces the opponent and allows for a vicious follow-up, so you can hit them 3 times with that. I don't know the actual damage stats of that at the moment. It's probably decent. But where I think this weapon is going to shine, as Qweets told me about when we were talking earlier, is if you're in a duos match, you can hit someone with this twice and then they bounce, which means that your partner can follow up with a move. They can either do like a single move, or they could probably start a combo off it. We'd have to see that, but that's a little scary.
Yeah, that's the first thing I thought of when I saw it, was like how it works in duos, because yeah, it bounces them up. So your partner could literally just like throw a javelin tackle afterwards, and you get way more damage out of working as a team like that, rather than just using the vicious follow-up of the bat. I think it might end up being really good in duos specifically.
Yep. And otherwise, I mean, it probably does more damage than just the metal bat does even, which I would say the bats are my least favorite weapons overall, but they're not bad still. They weren't before. Now there's a lot more options, and I think pretty much everything is better than the bat. But maybe this changes it. Maybe the cricket bat is actually quite good, and I think it will be pretty strong in duos, just for that extra combo ability.
Definitely, yeah.
All right, so now we have to move on to the last quote-unquote weapon. And I have to say something. I apologize, I'm probably going to hurt someone's feelings who works on this game, but what the is this? I cannot understand. This is the single change of this that it's just mind-boggling, and I really do not like it. Granted, I may play with it. It might be super cool. It could be fun to use. But what is going on? Like, why is this here? Usually in like a TV series, for example, you wait until, or you have like a first season that's kind of a feeler for the entire thing. And, at the very end of the season, or maybe the beginning of the second season, that's when you introduce something that's supernatural. But we're just getting right into it. In the mid-season update, they're throwing in this keybat weapon, but it's not even really a weapon. I mean, it acts like a weapon. It has priority of a weapon, but it does so much more than just that. So it's got actual combos. You can do a variety of different combo hits. It's got a lot of health on it, so you can hit people a lot of times with it. Yeah, the combos are stylish, but why? I'm out of words. I'm trying to process this.
He's more bothered by this change than I am, but it is kind of weird, I guess. It's definitely Kingdom Hearts-esque in terms of what it is. I definitely didn't expect anything like this, that's for sure.
No, and I mean, I understand if Epic is involved in publishing, like, you could fit this into something like Fortnite, no problem. It makes sense, or they would explain it. And actually, that's my biggest problem with it right now is why is it here? We're not given any explanation of why this powerful and mysterious artifact, which is just a key that I'm going to consider now as the key to the city or something, because it's important and they didn't tell us anything about it. So I'm going to pretend that this is the key to the city strapped to a baseball bat. And somehow that is a powerful and mysterious artifact with no further explanation. And why? Like, if this came out for season 2 and they gave some kind of story about why it's here, or maybe I wouldn't have so much of a problem with it.
So you're saying the lore behind it is your problem?
No, I have a lot of problems with this, but the lore bothers me a lot. The fact that they gave you this.
No lore.
Yeah, there is no lore. They give us this weapon in the middle of a season that has all kinds of crazy wild attack modes, and all they tell us is that it's powerful and mysterious, and it's an artifact. Well, how is it an artifact? It's a key strapped to a baseball bat. It can't be that old, because baseball bats are probably a lot newer. I have no idea how the history of baseball, unfortunately, even though I played it for a long time when I was younger. But I can't imagine. I mean, I guess it's a stick or a club. You could say it's a club, but it's definitely a baseball bat in there. Why is this here? But aside from lore, there's ways where I could get over that if they explained it. But I can't get over the gameplay implementations of it either right now. So you can do crazy combos with it. It is a weapon, so it has high priority. I think maybe it doesn't do that much damage, which is the only saving grace if that's the case. That's the only way they can make this like kind of fair. But you get a lot of hits with it. If you use the quick throw, which is... Actually, I don't even remember what key it is. I play on keyboard. I have the special moves bound to my side mouse button. So for me, it's the front mouse button. So you don't aim it, you just toss it. It works like a lightsaber, as Qweets pointed out. You throw it, or a boomerang. Like, you throw it, it comes back to you. You throw it, it does damage, it comes back to you. You can charge that projectile up, and it like throws at them, spins a bunch of times hitting them, and from what they mentioned in the video, it's like guaranteed to break their stamina. And not only that, of course we're not done with this ridiculous weapon. It goes through walls. Yeah. Why did they do that? Why did they think that was a good idea? You don't even
mysterious.
Yeah,
it's an artifact.
It phases through anything, apparently. I cannot wrap my head around that, and I could harp on this for a long time. I probably shouldn't. Maybe Qweets, you can offer some insight on it. Just know that I really do not like this, and when I try it, it might be a lot of fun, but that amount of fun I don't think will get me over how absolutely ridiculous this move is. This weapon is.
You neglected to mention the craziest part of it is that it allows you to fly.
Yep, because why not? Why not?
Why the hell not? Let's just throw that in there.
Yeah, and it's not even like 1 or 2 seconds of floating or something like that, which by
It's
itself...
until your stamina bar runs out.
Yeah, like by itself, 1 or 2 seconds of floatiness would actually... It'd be very helpful for getting around, and you know this is a mysterious, powerful artifact. Why not have it float you for a second or two? That's not the case. You just fly. And you fly in a straight line. You don't even fly on an angle downwards. You just fly until your stamina is out. And oh my god. Why? Whoever made this at Iron Galaxy either loves or hates me right now. Like I don't know if I'm breaking their hearts, or maybe some people also are like, why the heck did we put this in the game? But just the amount of passion I have over this, for some reason, it just bothers me so much. And I don't like anything about it, and I haven't used it yet even. It's probably fun. I need to stop now.
I've used it a bit in Playground. I still don't know everything about it. It seems like it'll be useful, especially since you can fly, for traveling around at least. Yep. I don't think it's like overly powerful. I didn't use it that much, so it's hard to say like what people figure out with it. It could definitely change. It's a place in the tier of weapons, basically, like what does the most damage. It probably has the potential for a ton of damage, especially since if it breaks when you're comboing them in the air with it, you can follow that up with, like, let's say a dolphin dive.
Yeah.
Hit them and then jump out of that and then do your vicious. Like,
more combos.
It could lead to a lot, I think. I definitely didn't expect anything like this this soon. I figured things would start getting crazy in the game eventually, but I didn't think it would happen so fast. So this just leads me to believe that we'll start seeing even crazier stuff in the future.
Oh, probably.
But the fact that there's only like 2 to 4 of them on a map, they're super rare. Like, might not be that big a deal, but I don't know. We'll have to see.
May or may not be. I have a slight issue with that as well. I swear this is the last one. But the fact that there's only 2 or 4 on the map is kind of annoying in a way. I mean, I would prefer none at this point, having not used it, of course. But with all the other moves, or if any time someone does something to you, like they use Dolphin Dive, do a crazy combo, they use Sumo Slap, tackle, whatever, it doesn't matter. If you break enough boxes in a match, you can probably find that, and you can do every move that they can do to you. You just have to, have the right setup for it or whatever. But there will be lots of matches where someone else picks up this item, and maybe you can fight them and take it from them, and great. But there's a good chance like you just won't have it, and it doesn't matter how many boxes you break potentially. Actually, I have no idea how you even get this item in the first place right now, but it's not something that you can rely on in any way. Like, it's going to be one every few games or 10 games or something. I don't know how rare it actually is, but it kind of breaks the way that the rest of the game works, in that you can get everything. Like, if someone else has a move and you're like, oh dang, I really want that Diamond Crusher, if you go break enough boxes in a single game, you probably could have found it before. Maybe not with the change that we talked about earlier now, but you're not going to get that staff or I don't know, it's Keybat very often.
Yeah, not at all.
So anyway, I hope whoever took part in making it either loves or hates me now. Either way, totally fine with that. I apologize if you hate me, but I could probably go on about this for a while, and I haven't even used it myself yet. So I'm sorry. I don't like that at all, especially not so early and with no explanation. But that's me. I'm sure, and I've seen other people on Twitter and whatnot posting how they are making insane combos with it already, and it's probably pretty fun. But I don't like the idea of it, and I will die on this hill. All right, so we're almost done now. This is significantly longer, and if anyone is still here, I really appreciate you listening close to the end. It's been an hour and 45 minutes just about, so this is much longer than I expected it to be, but we had a lot to say. Really quickly, we already talked about invulnerability on Charging Star, so that's been removed. The weapons in general, a bunch of them have had their recovery times of their weapon vicious attacks increased, so they should theoretically be a little bit more punishable, although I'm seeing a little bit of a little bit of discrepancy when reading people's posts online, because there was also a slight change to how dodges work that might get rid of the extra time that you'd have to punish it. So we'll have to see if they added extra recovery time to the vicious attacks. That's pretty much the only change that I wanted originally, just so that if you could get someone to whiff it, then you could punish them and probably take their weapon from them. That's all I wanted. There was a lot of other changes. Hopefully they're good, but we'll have to see. So that's it for weapons. I've got two more short things, I hope. The second last one we'll talk about is the meditative perk changes, which actually is not a change to meditate. It's a change to ring closing times. So meditate, if you're somehow unaware of this still, is the only perk in the game that doesn't encourage you to fight. It's the only one that you're supposed to stay away from people for as long as possible, basically. And while it is absolutely useful, I don't personally like the perk being in the game, but I understand it. It's great in the middle, early to mid game if you get it. I have absolutely no problems with it being there. It's in the final circle that it can cause problems when there's a lot of elevation. So if you just have a flat final circle with maybe a couple of objects, if you just stand there and meditate, everybody's going to see it. They're going to run up to you and probably try to attack you, or at least do something to make you not be able to use it. So it's not very useful there. But if you have a circle where there's a building in the middle, for example, and the edge of the circle just barely goes over the edge of the building, then that means people will stand below in bushes just healing themselves anytime they take damage. They'll get up to full health, they'll jump back up to the circle, hit someone. If they get hit again, they'll run back down and just stand out of the fight while other people do their thing. That makes it really difficult, and that's kind of hard to balance, because in some circles it's useless, in other circles it's absolutely bonkers good. So instead of actually making any change to that, though, they adjusted it so that the final ring will now close or get smaller in 7 seconds instead of 10 if nobody's fighting. So this is a theory that I had quite a while ago when the game came out, that not fighting is what leads to the circle shrinking, and I've been vindicated. I was correct. So I'm pretty happy about that guess anyway. But even though I think circles in general need to close a little bit less quickly, I would like to have more time at the beginning of the game before the circle closed, and I know Qweets, you have felt that way too.
Yeah, definitely. You're trying to loot in the beginning, and it just starts closing so fast that it really cuts off a lot of your options in terms of loot.
Yeah, and if you land near the edge of the map and you get into a fight semi-quickly, it's every loot thing that's out there, you're missing it. You have to run in with nothing. Maybe you get a couple perks, which is great, obviously, but you miss out on a lot of looting opportunity because the circle closes so fast. But anyway, this is about the final circle. Now it'll be 7 seconds instead of 10, so it'll force people into the middle of it faster, which should mean the people who have meditate will be able to use it less often, unless they can find some cheeky position where they're hidden or something. So will it help with the meditate perk problem? Probably. It also concerns me a tiny bit though, and maybe it won't actually affect it, but a lot of the times these days, like final circles will have 10 or more people in them, and that's absolutely nuts. So obviously some people are fighting then. Usually everybody's jumping around in circles. But once you get down to like 3 or even 4, like it's very common to have someone wait outside, or not outside the ring, but at the edge of the ring in a lower elevation or a higher elevation, wherever they can stand and just do nothing. And I'm not a fan of that. Everything else is action based. It's based on doing damage. So I don't necessarily think the meditative perk should go away. I don't even think it should be adjusted in some ways, but maybe what the actual solution here would be to change where the final circles can be. But at least now, if it comes in a bit faster, it's going to force those people to move. Probably they won't be able to stand on top of something anymore. They'll have to come join the fray, which is it's a nerf, and well, it's mostly a nerf, I guess.
Yeah.
Other healing perks will become slightly better in comparison to this one, just because you won't be able to stand still. So being able to heal from pods gains a little bit more, not even necessarily overall, because now that stamina pods are being picked up, or will likely be picked up more often, they won't be laying around as often near the final circle. So that could affect that and make that stock go down. But you know, your perks for hitting people or downing them, those are a bit better compared to meditative, and still pretty darn important. And meditative's not going to go away. It's not going to be useless. But maybe this change will be the fix that we need. I don't know. I know they say they'll look at it again in the future to see if this is enough to fix it or not.
Yeah, it's basically a test to see whether or not this helps with people being mad about meditate. I think I honestly don't think it'll change much. I think people are still going to find ways to hide and heal. Yeah. And there's nothing much you can really do in terms of balance, like, to prevent that. But I mean, they have it in the game. It's meant to be used, so can't really be mad.
Well, if you're anyone on the internet, you can be mad.
Oh yeah.
But
I see it everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, the point of a battle royale is to be the last one standing, and oftentimes not fighting is the best way to do that. So yeah, I get it. I don't think this will change very much, but maybe it'll just change it just barely enough so that it's not so annoying. There are a lot of times where the circle has just like a sliver that you can stand in that's at like the bottom of a building or something like that, and if that goes in faster, it will fix the problem often, and then it'll make meditative not very good at all because you can never use it. So we'll see. Maybe 7 is the perfect amount. Maybe they need to change it to something less. Maybe there's some way to detect like how many people are actually meditating or how many people have meditate, and change the circle size based on that somehow. I don't know. They'll look at that in the future. They'll be smarter than I am for sure about how to fix that after they get more data on it, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll see where it goes.
Yep. And now the last thing, just to end on a high note. For me personally, this is something that is a change that I love. I haven't got to experience it yet, obviously, but I know just by reading the notes, I was so happy about this. The wall dash now is used in place of jumping, or not in place, but in addition to jumping when you're clinging to a wall. So before, when you're climbing, you could press jump and it would make you scale the wall faster at the cost of more stamina. And that, you know, that's a cool feature. But the problem was that not every wall is straight up and down in Capital City. Some of them are angled. Some of them have like inserts or cutouts or I don't know if bevel, that might be the same thing. They have elements that stick out. And when you're climbing them, you can end up just falling off, which is annoying and it's unfortunate. And if you're pressing space to climb faster when you're doing that, then you jump further away from the wall and you can't climb back up. Usually you'll fall right to the ground or you'll fall down a lot and have to start over again pretty much. So now in addition to pressing space all the time, you're supposed to be able to just press the dash button to do that fast climb. Thank you so much, Iron Galaxy, for adding that. That is so nice because I was so frustrated with the wall jump mechanic in general, just because there are very few times where I actually wanted to use it, but I did it fairly often and I didn't want to, and that was frustrating.
Yeah, it was very annoying.
Yeah, so this fix, much appreciated. Absolutely love that. So that is the last thing. We're getting pretty close to the 2-hour mark, and if you are still here, I really, really appreciate you going through the entire thing with us. I hope you enjoyed yourself. If you agree or disagree with anything that we've said here, please leave a comment. We'd love to read that, and we'll probably both reply, or at least I'll reply if I see any comments. Otherwise, though, if there's something else, if you like this format of the podcast and you would like to see another one, maybe there's some changes here that we didn't talk about, or there's something else in the game that you'd like us to speak about, please let us know, and we'll see if we can make that happen. So, for the crew here at Fourth Wall Splat Podcast, brought to you by PEC, Peak Entertainment Conglomerate, I'm Sonic.
And I'm Qweets.
Perfect. You got the cue. And we'll see you soon on the streets of Grappital City. Appreciate it. I'll see you around.
Bye-bye.